The only way we can change is if the American people demand it. We're going to need voices in those areas, in those congressional districts where the tradition of gun ownership is strong, to speak up and to say this is important. It can't just be the usual suspects. Ask your member of Congress if they support universal background checks to keep guns out of the wrong hands. Ask them if they support renewing a ban on military-style assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Ask them what's more important. Doing whatever it takes to get a A grade from the gun lobby that funds their campaigns, or giving parents some peace of mind when they drop their child off for first grade.
President earlier today hinting at how he might try to sell his gun proposal to lawmakers by calling on the public, and as Andrew mentioned, the polls reflecting it, specifically the unusual suspects as gun owners and sportsmen to raise their voices in support of the reform. But he also hinted at how he might try to sell his plan to the public by highlighting and, you would argue, humanizing those who have already fallen victim to gun violence.
Grace was 7 years old when she was struck down. She dreamed of becoming a painter. And so just before I left, Chris, her father, gave me one of her paintings. And I hung it in my private study just off the Oval Office. And every time I look at that painting, I think about Grace. And I think about the life that she lived and the life that lay ahead of her. And most of all, I think about how, when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable among us, we must act now. For Grace.
All right. Ryan, how does this get sold? If you believe the argument that the American attention span is a very limited one, the president put his marker down today. He's not going to have that long, right, especially with all the looming fights ahead in Washington. Who does the selling for him, and what's the messaging?
Well, so I think that he's going to be aggressive. Him and Joe are going to go out there and have rallies and talk about this and put pressure on representatives. I think that you're going to see groups like Mayor Bloomberg's group that has an amazing website, demandaplan.org, where they're trying to get a whole coalition of voices from entertainment and sports all united in supporting this bill. And I think that the American people are going to have to stand up and lead on this as well. And if we want to get this law passed, the NRA is incredibly well funded.
Talk about what's already underfoot. I saw that Move On, for example, and other groups. Yeah. They're aiming at hundreds of thousands of signatures.
Right. You've got huge groups like Move On and Change.org who are going to be pushing out things. You've got Demand a Plan, which has already got 1 million signatures, and you've got organizations. You've got OFA, which is Obama's campaigning organization, that hasn't done anything since the campaign that he could turn back on, and that's a very, very powerful email list, a very powerful social media presence that could be push people to make phone calls and contact their representatives. I mean, I would love to see us flood our congressmen and women's phone lines with calls saying, you got to pass this legislation, you got to pass it right away.
Vince, on the other side, what do conservatives do to not just reach out to gun owners and members of the NRA, the 4 million plus, but to the other Republicans who are starting to, if you believe the public polls, get a little queasy on the subject?
Yeah, and I actually think you're going to see conservatives not have to change their strategies at all on this issue. We don't need to put together the big money Bloombergs.
Will it still be the same spokespeople? Will it still be the NRA types and the Limbaughs, or will it be somebody else? I'm
thinking of actually, if you want to move policy, if you want to get a real indication, especially in Republican districts across the country, like I said, the Democrats are going to turn to Hollywood. They're going to turn to Bloomberg and big money people. They're going to flood in there. What
if they turn to police chiefs across this country? What if they talk to gun victims?
That'd be great.
What if they talk to returning vets and they say, and it's not just the Mayor Bloombergs of the world, but it's regular people they could relate to?
Stanley McChrystal came out and said there was no reason why these guns are on the street. That's a guy who understands
But what I'm
firearms.
saying, let me finish the point though. What I'm saying is that what Republicans need to do is go back to their districts, and they need to go back to their gun clubs. Forget the big NRAs and the big organizations are going to pump all the money and everything. Let's talk about local grassroots. Let's go into the gun clubs back home. Let's go to the rod and gun clubs. Let's go to the fish and game clubs. Let's go talk to the people who are really the law-abiding gun owners and get their input. Let's have the, and again, we need to move this from a fight to a discussion.
Dom,
let's do it right at the local grassroots level.
Is the battlefield for this the red and the blue states, or is this more of a district by district kind of thing? And by that I mean, is this going to be a geographical fight here, or are they going to try and change enough minds all over the place that it's a volume argument? They'll decide on the national polls, or will they decide on the district numbers?
I think they're going to be forced to make a national case. If you go district by district, you're not going to win, because you're not going to change the opinion of people that strongly believe in the Second Amendment. And no matter what you say to them, they're going to believe that you're there to take their gun with Bloomberg leading the way. So it's going to be a national campaign. The president is at his best when he's on the stump. He's going to campaign like he's never done so before on this issue.
Even against Democrats?
Even against, that's a tough one. If he has to, he will.
Maybe what needs to happen is the left doesn't bring Bloomberg and the right doesn't bring Wayne LaPierre, and now let's have a discussion.
Because they're equivalent. Yeah.
On that uplifting note. All right, keep the conversation going online. Go to Facebook as well as Twitter and sound off. What's your reaction to what you heard from our president today? We come back. We're going to talk some politics. And out of our nation's capital, a new poll out of New York City's mayoral race. And one of our guests tonight, he's got a dog in the fight there. May surprise you some of the numbers. Who do you think the front runner is? Stay with us. We're going to talk about that and an ugly fight brewing in Jersey. Stay with us.